Hello and welcome to this nutrition series. This is part of my nutrition mini-series that I send to clients when they sign up. When you join me for online coaching, there is a period where we have a call and then I take a few days to write your program. During that time, there are a few things that you can already start doing, and one of them is going through my mini nutrition series, which is just useful information that we should probably all know, that I've tried to make into 4 simple lectures that talk about things like what are calories, what are carbs, and how much should we be eating of them, what's protein, why does it matter, and also how to stay lean all year. This one is a bonus lecture, and I added it at the end because I thought it was kind of fun. When I was asked this question, it made me kind of laugh just because of the way it was asked, and the kind of passion that it was asked with, which was, Georgia, I want to get abs, but I don't know how to. And I thought about it, and actually a few people have asked me this in different ways, but essentially asking the same thing. So I thought I'd do a lecture or a lesson just on this because it's actually quite simple, and I'll go through how it works. I'm going to try and keep this really short. I have quite a few slides because once you start talking about these things, there's a lot to cover, but I'm going to try and keep it really, really simple. So stay with me. I really believe in these lectures. I think they contain the key information you need to achieve your goal of staying lean all year and building muscle whilst also improving performance in your sport. Less information, more doing. We are in an age of too much information. It's quite overwhelming, and we're bombarded with so much information, a lot of which is misinformation and isn't true. So I am quite passionate about this, and I do want to say, I would recommend not getting your nutritional information and your training knowledge from Instagram and TikTok or from social media. I liken it to the news. I don't know if you're the same as me, but I don't follow any news outlets on social media, on TikTok or Instagram, because anytime I have, it's really sensationalist. I don't know if that's because I've worked in current affairs, I've worked in news before and I studied it, but I find it really jarring, and it's not the information you need. It's often they're just trying to work with the algorithm, when they're on social media, they're just going to say things that are going to make people react, that are going to cause an emotion, that are going to get views and likes and comments, even the best, most reliable news sources. So I don't get my news from there. I get my news from going directly onto their websites, onto news outlets websites, and listening to podcasts where people are actually knowledgeable in their field and are having a proper thought out conversation about it. So yes, the same goes for nutrition and exercise. And actually, there's something really bad that's happening at the moment on social media and TikTok, and then I will move on into the lesson, which is that influencers are being paid a lot of money to promote certain products that do nothing or that you don't need. And they tap into your emotion. They're very good at storytelling, and they tap into problems. So they might say, you're struggling to lose stubborn belly fat. You've been trying this, that, and the other. You tried a calorie deficit. It doesn't work. You've tried this. It doesn't work. But it's all because you're missing this one thing, or it's all because you're stressed, or it's all because this. And it's like, you can be stressed and lose weight. You can be stressed and get ripped. So what they're selling you, or the story they're telling you, is supposed to evoke emotion and make you want to buy the product. And the thing that's changed, the crazy thing is, whereas before they might be sponsored or affiliated with a product and they might get 10% if you buy the product through their link. Now that's changed. Now they're getting paid specifically per reel. And I know people who have been paid £10,000 to make one reel for a company. So when they're telling you how for your gut health you need this product, they are getting paid £10,000 for one reel. And I've heard of someone who got paid £40,000 for one reel. That is insane. So I really wouldn't be getting my training education or nutrition education or guidance or all those lifestyle tips from Instagram or TikTok. Consume the content if you want, but actually I would recommend consuming less content. But more importantly, you don't need more information. You probably know what you need to do. Now we need to figure out how you're going to do it and how to actually do it for long enough to see results. And that's what I help people with. That was a good segue. Let's go into the next thing. So what is the bonus lecture? This is what I'm going to call it. Georgia, I want abs, but I don't know how to get them. and the person who says this knows who she is, but it made me laugh because it was said with so much passion. And actually, you know, quite a few people have spoken about it. I've talked about this year I want to lose my belly, or I want to get ripped, or, you know, just I know that people who are, especially a lot of people that follow me, are very active, and you want to look like you're active. And I'm not saying you need to have a six-pack, but just looking toned and having abs, it's absolutely fine and legitimate to want that. So let's look at how you can do that. A little disclaimer before we start: if you currently have an eating disorder or have had one in the past, you might not want to hear me talking about calories. That's absolutely okay. Feel free to message me directly and we can look at an alternative approach to achieving your goals. We can still work on your goals, but it doesn't have to be through this. But specifically in this lecture, I will talk quite a lot about calories. So if that's something that you're actively avoiding in your recovery from an eating disorder, then please feel free to click off this lesson and message me direct instead. So here we go. This is what we're talking about, and here is the solution. So first of all, I want to keep things really simple. The answer is two things matter most. One, train hard. Abs are a muscle and they need to be trained. So if you've ever gone to the gym and say added in like shoulder press and lat raises and like more shoulder exercises and done that for 2 weeks or a week and noticed even just after a week that you've got more shoulder definition, well, abs are the same. We need to train them. And secondly, nutrition. Eating the right amount of calories for you. And we never get taught this, and we kind of just muddle through it throughout life. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. But those are the two things you need. Train hard, actually have abs in the first place, and then get your nutrition right so that you can reveal the muscle underneath. So phase one, build the muscle first. This is something a lot of people I think get wrong, a lot of women get wrong, is that there's no point just going into a diet all the time and trying to lose fat if there's no muscle underneath. This goes for anywhere in your body, but today we're going to talk specifically about abs. Unless you're sure that you've got the abs underneath, so you could be like, I'm someone who has the abs underneath, there's a layer of fat over the top. If I lose that layer of fat, you will see a six-pack. Fine. But if you don't yet have a layer of muscle, of clearly like solid, strong muscle underneath, then we need to do that first. Because otherwise, if you just keep trying to lose weight, you will hopefully succeed at that and lose the weight, or if you succeed at that and lose the weight, you will just look flat. And you've probably done this before and you've experienced it and you're like, well, I lost weight, but I still don't have abs. So we need to build the muscle first. Here's a few tips from me on how to do this. But again, this is something that we work on in my coaching program. I would recommend gym 3 times a week, doing resistance training or strength training. Stick to the same workouts every week for at least 12 weeks. But you can stick to them for even longer. If a workout is working and you're getting stronger, you don't need to change it. I always put specific ab exercises in if you're trying to get abs, and basically I would structure my workout with like a warm-up and rehab exercises first and then abs, because if you leave them till the end, you're more likely to get to the end, feel tired, or need to leave the gym and skip them. So put them first. They're also quite a good thing to do early on because they'll pre-activate or activate all your core, which is actually good if you're going to go on and do deadlifts and squats and other exercises like that. So put them at the start and I would recommend, say, 2 to 3 ab exercises, 3 rounds at the start. What do I mean by ab exercises? It could be a hanging leg raise, could be toes to bar, could be lying leg raise, could be a side plank, could be Copenhagen plank. It can be the ab crunches on the machine. It can be cable ab crunches with the rope. Like, all of those are perfectly fine. But basically 2 to 3 exercises, 3 rounds. Lift heavy with good form. Even when you're doing a deadlift, like this lady in the picture, you are strengthening your core. That will help you get more definition in your abs. So lift heavy with good form. First of all, obviously, get the form right. That's really important, both to prevent injury and also to actually use the right muscles. If you're doing lifting with bad form, you'll probably use your rectus spinae, your back muscles, instead of your core. So lift with good form, and then you're going to do the same workout for 12 weeks, right? So then you can start to increase the weights and get to a point where you can lift heavy. But yeah, stop changing your workouts. And then eat enough to grow muscle. If you are constantly depriving yourself of food and eating like a squirrel, you will be in a deficit, you'll be losing weight. And if you're losing weight, when you lose weight, your body doesn't differentiate between fat or protein. It will just break down whatever it can to get energy. So anyone who loses weight loses muscle and fat. When people are trying to lose weight, what we always recommend is to build muscle or work on building muscle at the same time. That is to limit how much muscle you lose. You do still lose muscle, but we just try and limit it. So if you're constantly starving yourself and trying to build muscle, it's not going to work. So at this phase 1, I need you to eat enough. I need you to eat at calorie maintenance or more to actually grow the muscle. Then later in phase 2, we're going to do a cut and actually reduce your body fat, reduce your calories, and reveal the muscle underneath. So here we are. Phase 2, now is time to get into a calorie deficit. How long these phases last, it depends on the person. I can't give you an exact timeline, but let's say phase 1 could be like 1 to 4 months to build muscle, depending on the person, depending how much abs you start with. It depends. But 1 to 4 months. And then phase 2, same again, get into a calorie deficit about 1 to 4 months. But trust me when I say, even in 1 month, you can see a lot of results. So why get into a calorie deficit? You need to reduce your body fat. So now we're at this phase. I'm a good example where you've got muscle underneath, you've got quite a lot of muscle tone. There might be a little bit of layer of fat on top. So now we need to get you into a calorie deficit so that you can reduce your body fat and reveal the muscle underneath. That is phase 2 and the final phase. How? So use the Harris Benedict formula. I always say that because I trust it. It was the one I was taught on my personal training course. Or a great one that's sort of like a bit more user-friendly is the James Smith Calorie Calculator. James Smith is a fitness professional. He has a really simple one to use on his website. I really recommend doing calculating how many calories you need to be in a deficit twice. So use 2 calculators and compare the results to make sure they're correct. Because if you only use 1 calculator and you put something in wrong or the calculator's just wrong, you won't know unless you compare 2 results, and they should come out with a very similar result. So if that wasn't clear, Google Harris Benedict formula calculator, put your information in, so your age, your height, your weight, and your goals, and then do the same with the James Smith calculator and then compare the results. They should come out with the same result. If one of them is wildly off, then we need to figure out which one is right, and therefore I'd probably use a third calculator. You can use ChatGPT, but like I say, don't just use ChatGPT because that is the one that's most likely to get it wrong. So use ChatGPT and compare it to James Smith and make sure those results are the same. And what a calculator is going to give you is your number of calories that you need to eat every day to be in a calorie deficit. Calorie deficit means you're slightly under your caloric needs for the day, and it means your body is going to start to break down both muscle and fat instead to help you get through the day, and that is how you lose weight. Now, a reasonable goal is 0.5 kilos per week. Don't be silly with this. Don't push it up more than that, or don't expect more than that, because actually when people try to lose more than that, they set their calories too low, and actually what happens is after 3 days you're just starving and you're more likely to give up on a diet if you are too ambitious with it in the beginning. So set something reasonable like 0.5 kilos per week. That is a reasonable goal to have. Over a month, that's 2 kilos, and this is likely going to be a lot easier to sustain, and therefore you're going to get to your results actually quicker, because within 2 months you could have lost 4 kilos. Within 3 months you could have lost 6 kilos. Is a lot of weight to lose and a lot of fat to lose. So you can absolutely achieve your goals quite easily in 3 months, but don't be unrealistic. Like, actually stick to 0.5 kilos per week. The reason I mention this, we haven't got to this, but this image on the left is MyFitnessPal. There are lots of calorie counting apps you can use, but once you have your number, so say your number is 1900 calories, that's your deficit, you put it into something like MyFitnessPal, and sometimes MyFitnessPal will ask you, what's your goal? How much do you want to lose a week? And that's where I say, don't put more than 0.5. Like, maximum, or what I would recommend is 0.5. Okay, let's use me as an example. Okay, let's use me as an example. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share the James Smith calculator. That's the easiest to use. I would actually recommend using the James Smith calculator, this one here, and something like ChatGPT or another calorie calculator, and then compare the results. So James Smith, I'm going to put lose fat is my goal. I would like to lose fat. I'm a female. I'm going to keep it in metrics. I'm going to put my age, my height, and my weight, my current weight. So not your goal weight, but your current weight. Then it asks you what your activity levels are. I would always err on the side of caution. So I would say I'm very active. I do train 6 days a week, but I would put moderately active, because I'd rather underestimate than overestimate, because this is trying to take into account how active you are. Means if you're very active, you're going to need more calories, but I would always underestimate. So I'm going to put moderately active, and basically what I'm saying is most people are going to be lightly active. If you're very active and you're often doing 5 days a week of activity, then put moderately. If not, put lightly. That's what I'm trying to say. Because yeah, this makes sense to me. So my calorie target is 1,886. My protein target is 98. I personally, and I'm going to talk about protein on a different slide, but I would recommend a lot more protein than that. I would recommend between 130 and 140 for someone like myself. But I will talk about protein on a different slide. Calories, 1,800. Fine, I can tell you right now, I'm in a calorie deficit. I have been for 25 days since the 1st of January because I have a photo shoot coming up in April and actually another one in May. And I just decided, look, I want to have visible abs. Sometimes I do already, but I just really want to have like even more because it's fun. I've always wanted it, but also it's always prioritized health and performance. And I was like, you know what? You're 31, do it. Why not? So I'm now in a really strict diet and calorie deficit, doing literally what this whole presentation is about. And I can tell you now, I have been eating 1,900 calories since the 1st of January. I've lost 3 kilos in 25 days, which is actually insane. Remember, this is beginner gains. This is something that's important. I'm not going to expect another 3 kilos in the next 25 days. That's probably not going to happen. 3 kilos in 25 days is more than 0.5 kilos a week. I wasn't aiming for that. It's just what's happened. And it's because I've been very strict and I've like stuck to the diet. I haven't gone off much, like gone off plan. I have eaten out every week at least once, and I've had a nice meal out in a restaurant and not worried about it, but I haven't had all the extras and all the, you know, like desserts and loads of alcohol. Like I've just had my main. I've eaten out. The next day my weight was always up because it does go up. When you eat out, your weight goes up because you eat more and you eat more salt, which means you hold on to more water. So my weight was always like way up the next day, but then it comes back down. And the key thing I've done is I've eaten out once per week, but the rest of the time I've stuck to my diet. So yeah, and I've been eating 1,900 calories. So pretty much bang on what this is saying here. So let's get back to the slides. So now we have that number. So mine, we'll use me as an example, 1,900. That is my calorie deficit. The brutal and honest truth is you have an adherence issue. The reason you may be watching this, especially if you've tried this before, the problem probably isn't that you didn't know what to do. It's just it's hard to stick to, right? Most people set their calories too low and struggle to stick to them. So anyone I've spoken to using MyFitnessPal on their own has often set a target that's just like very ambitious. They've set their calories too low, and then you get low energy, you feel shit, you find it unpleasant, and give up. And most or a lot of people just don't track and are just guessing. And if you're guessing, you're probably overeating. There's a few people that undereat, but and they have a different problem of like struggling to build muscle. But most people are overeating. And sometimes what I have noticed is some people like they don't eat much food, but the calories in those food are really high. What you'll notice once you start actually using an app like MyFitnessPal and tracking your meals and actually putting the food in and actually weighing your food, what you'll discover is it's not the amount of carrots you're eating that's making you gain weight or that's stopping you from shifting this body fat, but it's the things like mayonnaise, which you don't eat much of, but it's very high in calories. Or you eat a lot of, it doesn't really fill you up, but it's very high in calories. Things like, what was the other thing I thought of earlier? It's things that are low in volume, but really high in calories. And that's what you need to learn. So treat MyFitnessPal or any kind of calorie counting app like a learning tool to understand what is in your food. So you can understand, right, I don't need to cut the main things. Like you probably know what you need to eat. You don't need to cut vegetables. You don't need to cut protein like chicken and tofu and beans. You don't need to cut bread and pasta and rice. Those are not the issues. It's the things that are low in volume and really high in calories. Things like soy sauce, things like certain cheeses, things like, my brain's gone blank now, but things like chocolate is very high in calories. It's not that you can't have any, but maybe the 2-3 squares are enough. When you're having a whole bar, that is what is taking you over the edge. And it's much more important that you focus on cutting those things. or reducing them than cutting your meals and just having salad like this bowl. To be honest, this bowl is that is a great starting point for your food, for your plate, this bowl in the image, but that should be now topped with some rice or some bread or some pasta and some protein. Like you still need carbs. Carbs are literally what give you energy. So you need to be eating them. The foods that are in this image are fantastic because they are high in volume, so they make you feel like you're eating a lot. They're full of vitamins and minerals, which are really important for your energy levels and for your health, your hormonal health, but they're very, very low in calories. Like that whole bowl is like 50 calories, 100 calories max, nothing. So what I would do next is download, I always recommend MyFitnessPal. I actually have a video. I'm going to show you this because I'm going to put it in the show notes. So if you want to watch the video after this lecture, you can. But I have a whole video on how to use MyFitnessPal. So let me turn the volume off, otherwise it'll be confusing. But where I walk you through how the app works. There you go. There's my 1900 calories again. So if you want to watch this, I will leave it in the show notes so you can see, like, on a practical level how to track calories. But essentially, you want to download an app where you can input your meals and understand what one full day of eating looks like for you. So I want you to start from this morning all the way to tonight, put in everything you eat. You don't need to put water in, but you need to put your lattes, your drinks, your alcohol, all your food into the app. And this actually shocked me, like how high my calories were when I was eating kind of mindlessly without worrying too much or thinking too much about what I was eating. A lot of my meals were healthy. Most of my meals were healthy, plus some chocolate, biscuits, etc., which is all great in a balanced diet. But actually I was eating at 2,500 to 3,000 calories. So I was basically way over even my calorie maintenance, even the calories I need to maintain my weight. So over time, very slowly, I was gaining weight. So number one, the most important thing for your health is to learn how to sit at maintenance and kind of stay the same weight. That is a really healthy place to be. But specifically with your goal here, you're going to need to be just slightly under. Not a lot, but slightly under. So now that you've put in a full day of eating, look back on it. And like I was saying before, look at what foods you're eating that are really pushing your calories up. So might that be mayonnaise? Might that be the sauces? Might that be the number of ingredients you're using in your dinner? It's just too many. Be really as accurate as you can though. Like when you're putting in pasta, weigh your pasta. I know it's a little bit of a faff, but treat this as a learning curve. You're doing a bit of an experiment. If you want to learn how much is in your food, actually weigh it. Yeah, so I've shown you the video, which I will link in the show notes. And just notice that I haven't told you what to eat. Like I said before, you probably know what you need to eat. Like there are foods you need to eat vegetables and fruit, but vegetables, a wide variety of vegetables. They are very low in calories. You can kind of almost eat as many as you want. I mean just vegetables though, not with all the olive oil, heavy, like loads of olive oil, and then that starts to be a lot more calories. But purely vegetables are extremely low in calories. You need to eat protein, so chicken, oily fish, tofu, beans, legumes, and then you need to eat carbs. So vegetables are carbs themselves, but also starchy carbs, so like potatoes, rice, bread, pasta, all of those are very good in a diet, but they're again quite high in calories, so you want to be getting the right portion. I went, for example, from eating 80 to 100 grams of pasta to now in my deficit eating 60 to 70 grams of pasta when it's dry. Well, I weigh it when it's dry. So things like that. Rice, the same. I had a client who was struggling to lose weight and she just realized she was eating way too much rice. So learning how much you need to eat, the portion sizes are important, but you absolutely shouldn't cut any of those foods out. Bread, rice, pasta, and potatoes all have a place in your diet. And then things like, we covered protein, vegetables, and carbs. Those are the main things you need in your diet. You can have a little bit of nuts and seeds, but I would be very mindful of those because they are very high in calories. But you will learn that when you put them into your MyFitnessPal. A small note on protein. The scope of this in this lesson, I'm not going to go into carbs, fats, protein. The only one I'll touch on is protein. Yes, it is important. It's really important for your hormonal health. It's really important for your energy levels. It's also really important if you're trying to build muscle, which with this goal of getting visible abs, you're trying to build or maintain muscles while reducing your body fat. So the government guidelines are actually much lower than this. They're like 0.75 to 1.6 or something grams of per kilo of body weight per day. But as a personal trainer, we always set them higher because the government guidelines are guidelines for your average person to maintain just a healthy lifestyle. But you're not just trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're actually trying to build muscle. You are very active, so you need more. But second, also, if you're watching this lecture, you're probably not the average person that sits in an office all day and never exercises. So you have different needs. And specifically, I would recommend 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. So here's an example below. If I take the middle range, I take 2 times a 60 kilo person, right, that person should aim for 120 grams of protein per day. And then finally, and the most important part is it working? It's really important that you actually track your progress. And whilst you might find this cringe, but you need to take a picture at the start. And if you want my genuine advice as coach, if you have a very specific goal of getting visible abs, I would take a picture once a week. In the morning, before you eat, once a week, and save it somewhere. Because you'll be surprised, within 1 week, or definitely within 2 weeks, if you're actually sticking to your calorie target, you will see progress. It won't feel like it, because you'll feel like, oh, well, I'm not where I want to be. I don't have visible abs yet. But when you compare the pictures, it's very reassuring to see that it's working, and it will motivate you to keep going. And then I also use body weight, but I don't just use body weight. And again, I would weigh yourself once a week, if not actually multiple times a week. But I don't just use body weight. It's really important that you don't just use body weight, because body weight fluctuates a lot and it doesn't take into account muscle. Like if you've gained muscle, that's a good thing. So the two together work really well, because the progress photos will show you that your weight maybe hasn't dropped as much as you wanted. Maybe this week you didn't lose 0.5 kilos of weight on the scales, but when you look in the pictures, you have way more definition in your abs and you're like, sick. Well, at the end of the day, all I care about is that visible ab definition. Actually, the weight you weigh on the scales is kind of not important. So I would really, really recommend using progress photos for a goal like this. What I will say is when you weigh yourself in the morning, go to the toilet, have a wee, but then before you eat any food or drink any water, weigh yourself the same like that. So every time you weigh yourself in the same conditions. And don't obsess over the fluctuations. Within a week, your weight will go like this. That's really normal. But what we're looking for is, what was your lowest weight last week and what's your lowest weight this week, and are they trending down? So I don't care about daily fluctuations. I care about the overall trend. And finally, be patient. I said at the start, it's going to take, for the cut phase, like 1 to 4 months. That's a long time. Like, I've been in this diet for 25 days. Trust me, sometimes it feels like it's been 2 months. It's only been 25 days. But then when I look at all the data I've got, the photos I've got, and the fact that my weight has dropped 3 kilos, I know it's working. So that really motivates me. And honestly, I'm not starving. There are days when I'm hungry, like around my period, but I'm not starving because I haven't thrashed my calories. I haven't reduced them to a point where it's unsustainable. And actually, I feel quite good. I actually feel better than I did before, because before I was eating mindlessly and I was eating a lot more junk food. So I actually feel better. But my points are, you are going to be hungry at times. You are going to be impatient. You are going to get a bit frustrated at times. And you are going to want to give up. But as long as you're doing all these things and you're being a little bit of a scientist about it, then you will see results. But please track them, because otherwise you won't know whether it's working or whether you are being consistent enough. When you're using MyFitnessPal and tracking your calories, put everything in. Don't skip things, because otherwise it doesn't work. Try and be really honest. And what you can do, if you don't like tracking your foods in MyFitnessPal every day, what I've done, I actually don't track my foods in MyFitnessPal every day. I have a meal plan where that's saved, that is 1900 calories, and I just look at it and follow that, and I don't go off plan. But I don't have to put it in, I just follow that. So I eat the same foods every day, same breakfast. If you see my stories on Instagram, it's always the same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner, same snacks. However, I switch out the vegetables so that I get variety, and I have like a few options for rice or pasta for dinner. And then sometimes, mostly I've been eating chicken breasts because it's just lean, simple, and like, I don't know, less decisions to make. So I've mostly been eating chicken, but I can switch out the protein as well. And I know that and I will change that in MyFitnessPal and check, like, okay, if I switch it to tofu, how much do I need to eat to not go over my calories? So I switch things out, but I basically have like it all just in, and I can just go copy paste. and it's all there. So you don't have to be like try and simplify your life for this phase where you're trying to reduce your calories. Eat a lot of the same meals and it will make your life so much easier. Finally, if you do have any questions about this, you can message me at strict with G on Instagram. Happy to answer them. And if you want my help with this, I still have a few spaces for one-to-one coaching. I'm mostly full, but I can help 1 or 2 new people. So if you do want my help with this, message me at strict with G. We can talk about how I can help you with your goals.